drying. And I haven't decided if I want to start that other project on this video or not, so I'm kind of thinking maybe not. We'll just make that a separate video. Okay guys, this is many days later after the last time I worked on the shirt. This is the new fabric, but just look at the condition of this bag. It's not getting off on my hands, so that's good. So we're gonna open. This is the new fabric that does not have embroidery. I don't want to use those scissors. Ooh. It's very sticky. It's beautiful in person. I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to leave it down here and then. So this design is in a very pale gray on a white background, and it could be embroidered. I mean, that's what it looks like. It's very nice. I'm trying to, there we go. Okay. Good morning. It's the next day. The pattern pieces are all cut out and marked, and I'm going to leave piece 1 out because I'll need to mark the buttonholes, and I'm sure I'll be pressing and all these marks will disappear, so this will be the last one to get marked, the buttonholes. We're going to be stitching in those stitched in darts on piece 1 and press them. And then we're going to stitch the darts in the back and then press them. These get pressed open and these get pressed toward the center of the shirt. Then we stitch the fronts to the back at the shoulder seams and the side seams. The front pieces are marked with these dots so that you can match them up right sides together, like so. You're going to have to shape it as you stitch it because it's a curve in and then a curve out. I recommend that you either clip it or pin it. I'm going to try clips and see if this works. Then when you get it under your sewing machine, you can take this first clip out, but make sure you're starting right where that, I'm going to start it slightly above where that cut in the fabric is. Okay. And I'm going to stitch with needle down. So we'll be pressing this seam that we just made open so that it looks like this. Up here, instead of right here, I've got a little bit of fabric to work with. I think what I'm going to do, I don't normally like to back stitch on these, but I can see the threads on the right side, and I don't want to see the threads on the right side. So this machine has a lock feature, and I'm going to engage that right now after I make sure, yeah. Okay. If your machine does not have a lock feature so that it's locking the stitch, you can either back stitch right here, or the very best method is to tie the bobbin thread and the needle thread together and make a knot or two at this point right here. So I will go press this and do the second piece, and I'll be right back. Okay, these have been done. I will tell you right up before I forget that the best way to press those is take it to the ironing board the way you stitched it. So just like this, and press this seam just as it is. Two pieces of fabric together, get it warm, and then open it up, and it's so much easier to press. All right, now we're going to make the two darts in the back. I need to press this fold from the fabric. I need to press that out first. So I also want to mark these so that they show through to the other side. Sometimes it's just better to do it that way. Okay, so it's marked. I'm going to go press and I'll be right back. If you've never made a dart before, what you do is it's made on the wrong side of the fabric, and you start up here at the point and just kind of fold it a little bit right there. And then you're going to match these dots with the dots on the other side. That's why you have two sets of dots. You've got these on this side, and then you've got these on this side. Take a pin and poke it through the fabric on one side of the dots, and when it lines up with this dot, so I've got a pin through this one and a pin through this one, go to the next one and just leave the pin in it. Get the next two lined up, so poke it through and then find the second dot and poke it through, and then do that again. And one last time at the bottom. Okay. And I will, when I'm doing one of these kind of dart situations, I will use pins because I find it to be so much easier than clips. Now this is normal right here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stitch this one. with my pins in place. Sometimes it doesn't cut. Okay, so next, these have been pressed in, and the way I did that is I pressed it this way first to get it warm, opened it out, I put my iron right here on the fabric, and I pulled this fabric this direction, and then I pressed. And I did the opposite on the other side. Okay, so now we're going to stitch these two fronts and backs and make sure that the straight edge of the front is in the middle of the garment here. It's not over here. You have notches to match up on this side. So if the notches match, then you're in the right spot. But we're going to do the shoulders first. And you also have notches to match, like so. I don't know if you could see that because the white fabric in the background, but there's your notch right there and right there. So get those matched up. Stitch across here. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I'm using a 2.5 stitch length for these stitches on all of them. Okay, we're going to use 5/8 of an inch. Side seams. You can zigzag over these seams right here, but I recommend at least clipping. If you're not going to use pinking shears, just clip this just a little bit, you know, take your regular scissors and just snip into this right here. It'll make it turn out prettier and you'll just be happier. All right, I'm going to go press and I'll be right back. So we're going to create the facing by attaching piece 9 to pieces 8. We'll have 2 piece 8s and 1 piece 9. Before I forget, I do want to mention that if you haven't sewn before, that let me get it straightened out here. This right here is a slight bias, and this fabric is most likely to stretch. So you want to take care with this piece right here, the back neck edge. So when you take it to the ironing board, you don't want to stretch this right here. If you're worried that you might do that, I know when I was just starting to sew years ago, that was one of the first things I did, and my facing wouldn't fit. So the way to fix it, if you've already stretched it out, is run a basting stitch along this neck edge and then you can kind of pull it up a little bit. You don't want ruffles there, but it will kind of ease it into the facing a little bit better. If you haven't already done that, just let it go and don't mess with your fabric too much. That's my best advice. But a stay stitch is a good idea in this area. They don't call for a stay stitch, I don't think, at least on this view they don't. And they don't talk about it in the construction of this, but it is a good idea if you're concerned you might stretch it out of shape. Right sides together. So here's this notch on piece 9, and here's this notch on piece 8, and they match up. If they don't match up, then just flip something over, or, you know, change the side. You might have right side mixed up with left side. I decided to finger press because I wanted these registration marks to still be here. I didn't want to press this. Also, this is a bias cut of sorts. It will still stretch, and I've not stay stitched. I've not stay stitched this, and I've not stay stitched the neck edge. So I'll wait until I get it attached, and then I will press it. Okay, now the next thing to do is clip up to the stitching on the neck, the part that goes around the neck edge. Let's see if the pattern tells you to do that. No, it doesn't tell you to clip that neck edge. I would anyway. No, but it does tell you to clip to these corner circles. So right here and right here on the other side. So kind of at an angle, you will just clip. They show 1, I'm going to do 3. I've learned that these require that, for me anyway. Now this is an outer corner, and I'm going to clip this edge off, and the same thing on this side. Just going to clip this off. And right along here, I'm going to trim it with my pinking shears. Okay, my next step is going to be to zigzag along this edge right here, all the way around the facing. Okay, now I've got a lot of weird little loose threads to trim. I've pressed these facings to the inside, and now I need to stitch them the way it's described in the directions. It's called an understitch. Where does it tell you to do that? Right there. Understitch the facing as far as you can. There will be some points, actual points, like this collar point right here, where you won't be able to understitch it, but that's fine. So next, we have these sleeves that we must deal with. All right, so here is a piece of interfacing. So they've both been interfaced, and the next step is to stitch them with the notches matching, right sides together. So I've trimmed this little piece of cardstock paper to a 3/8 of an inch, so I can mark it like so. You can just do this however you want to do it. So you'll have something that looks like that. And then do this one, make sure it's on the unnotched edge down here. Oh, wait, first I gotta press this down. You can take it to the ironing board and press this if you want to, but I don't want this or this to be creased with my hot iron. So I'm just doing it with my fingers. I'll have to take off this little table and put my sleeve on it. And I'm going to put put my machine up to 4.5 and do 2 rows of gathering stitches that I will start and stop at the seam. So I'm going to start right here, go all the way around, and stop on this side. So start on this side, stop on that side. Pop up my needle and pull it so I have some thread to pull to gather this with. Alright, because my fabric is lightweight and I hate wasting thread, I'm only going to do 1 row. They tell you to do 2, and that is in case the thread that you're pulling on breaks, then you've got another thread to take up gathers with. If that happens, I will just do another row. I don't have to worry too much. If I were doing a skirt, I would definitely do 2 rows. And when I get up to here again, I'm going to stop. Okay. And pull. Okay. Alright, so now I'm going to gather my sleeve up. The way you do this is you pull either the needle thread or the bobbin thread, but if I start pulling the needle thread, I'm not going to then come back here and pull the bobbin thread, because that will lock my stitches and I won't be able to pull anymore. So needle thread. This edge right here needs to be facing up. Okay, let's poke it in. It's getting too fiddly. Alright, now I'm going to match up this seam together. And pin that right there. Too small to fit this opening here, and you'll just have to stitch it under the needle, and it can be kind of fiddly. I recommend, seriously, I'm just going to say this, I recommend not doing it on a day when you've got 1 nerve left, because it's, some people may not find it to be so, but I find it to be very fiddly. And what I mean by that is, see how many pins I've used? Now, when I put this under the machine, I'm right away going to have to take some pins out, because I don't sew over pins. If you do, that's up to you. Then you might not have this problem, but I don't like sewing over pins. And as you can see already, I'm struggling. I'll take a picture of what I'm looking at. So, as you can see, when I get it underneath the foot, I am immediately going to have to take out some pins. So I'm going to start at the sleeve and cuff seam, and first pin out. And that's just the way it goes. Okay, I'm not moving my gathering threads until I check to make sure everything is fine. And I'm going to pull the needle thread. And then go in here and pull the gathering bobbin thread across it. There we go. And now we can turn the sleeve right side in or wrong side out. And this part of the seam should be facing the cuff. It should naturally do it. If it doesn't, you might want to press it. Cut all these errant threads. And then we're going to fold, leave this part folded, and you're going to fold this so that that folded edge that we trimmed to 3/8 of an inch is sitting over the top of the raw seam that attaches the sleeve to the cuff. You can see that that is the case. Adjust it however you find you can. Alright, and then I will get a needle, which, what did I do with it? I remember I had it. I usually, there it is, right there. I think I'll just use a single thread. I take tiny stitches, and I feel like a double thread is just a little much. Make sure that you measure these against each other. This one has been stitched all the way around. This one I've not started on yet. But I want to measure this little cuff to make sure that they are the same size. This one is slightly bigger, so I'm going to adjust it by, pushing and changing it up a little bit. So let's see if that worked. Just lay them side by side. Oh, it's still a little bit too big. Your best guide is the seam allowance between the sleeve and the cuff. But even that can be slightly different. And there we go. So these two are even, and these two are even. So now I will start on this one. So the next step is to put the sleeves in, and the way we do that is we've got our shirt right side out, and we will take the sleeve right side out. Just go ahead and turn it all and make sure that everything is correct. And then take this seam right side and this seam right side. So this is the side seam of the shirt and the sleeve seam, and we will put them together like this. And we're going to match up right sides together, shirt, sleeve. We're going to match these seams together. So I have the sleeve seam facing to the left and the shirt seam facing to the right. And I will pin that right there. And in the early stages of getting this all put together, I'll put 2 pins. Sometimes I even crisscross them, or I put them real close together because I want that to stay. All right. I haven't missed any areas, nothing is off. the two seams match up. Alright. I cannot pull the gathering threads from this side because I started gathering from the bobbin side. So I have to come inside this shirt sleeve and then I can pull these. And they should just pull right out, which they did. And now I can remove these. Alright, that looks pretty good. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to cut these threads and then I'm going to go around and trim it very carefully with my pinking shears. I need to get these off. And we'll do the other sleeve the exact same way. Now, one thing that can happen if you're not watching your seam allowances is you will put this sleeve on and then you will attach this sleeve and it will be way up here. Well, you can't see, can you? Okay. So you've attached this sleeve, it's sewn in. And then you go to attach this sleeve and you take a bigger seam allowance and this cuff ends here and this cuff ends here. So you have to be very careful to make sure that the seam allowance that you took on this sleeve is the same seam allowance that you're going to take on this sleeve. And then once we get that done, we'll be ready for the buttons and then the shirt will be finished. One thing I didn't point out, and I probably should have, for those of you who have not installed many sleeves, you will have obviously you'll have two sleeves that you're working with. One of those sleeves will have a double notch. The other sleeve will have a single notch. You want to match the sleeve with the armhole that has the matching double notch and the matching single notch. Like this sleeve has this single notch right here, and this bodice part, arm side, has this single notch here. So you want to make sure that when you're putting your sleeves in and you're matching up these notches, that these notches are the right notches. Double notch to double notch, single notch to single notch. Especially if your sleeve has a cuff that you button. I'm installing the second sleeve and I'll get that done. And then when I come back, we'll do the hem and then the buttonholes, I think. Let me check and make sure that's the right order. So it has already been hemmed when you're doing the buttonholes. Okay. So sleeves, hem, buttonholes. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these gathering threads out. So to hem it, we turn the, let's see, right, we turn facings to the inside, or excuse me, to the outside, like this. I'm going to cut these threads. So we're going to turn this to the outside. And we're going to stitch 5/8 of an inch right across this lower edge. We turn it back to the inside and that pulls under a hem. And I'm going to stitch this one at 5/8. I'll use the marking on my machine, or if you have a seam guide or a hem, something that looks like this that's magnetic, or like this that's magnetic, you can attach it and use that. But I have a line right here on this machine that says 5/8. Okay, and I'm going to do the same with this side. Okay, now I have got a lot of thread. I've got loose threads here, loose threads on the other side. And flip this around. Okay, and then same thing. Cut the loose threads, or the little threads, I guess. Okay, and trim off this little point. And turn it to the inside. Okay, there's a loose thread. All right, now I'm taking this over to the ironing board. As you can see, this little fold is, this little fold right here is causing this to want to pull up like that. And I will fold under and press it down at the ironing board. And that's where my hem will be. I'm not going to hem it by hand. I think just a stitch across here will suffice. And then we'll come back and put on those buttonholes. All right, and there's the hem. I really can't see that white thread. So, oh, and I used a hairdryer on high heat just to get rid of my friction ink marks. Okay, so the next step is to mark the buttonholes. And pray for guidance. Okay. Okay. 5 buttonholes. We're going to cut the threads. Now I'm going to take a straight pin that has a colored tip, and I will put it across the back of the buttonhole. This is the buttonhole and this is the pin. And I'm going to take my seam ripper and wiggle very slowly and carefully toward the pin. Just like that. And it keeps, that pin keeps you from, you know, just continuing. Alright, I've removed the friction ink, and I'm going to hang it on a coat hanger and mark where the buttons go, and then sew the buttons, and we'll be all done. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye.